Amari Cooper, one on a moment. P.J. Williams, Carr in the gun. Carr looks left, throws, caught. Seth Roberts diving for the end zone. Touchdown! Raiders!
They're going for two, guys.
They are going for two in the win. Wow!
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to the first episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Finally, a beautiful day in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle. And Ryan's is RHOM22. It rained all weekend, off and on, where I'm at, and then now today the sun came out, so I got a little pep in my step, if you will. Ryan has been around the world, and he's been around the world, but he's been everywhere, right? All over the world doing stuff. So now got time to sit down a little bit and talk some combine, some Raiders. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I've been up and down the West Coast the last few days, and every time I go to Eugene, Oregon, I ask myself, why do people live there, and why do athletes want to go to school there? Nike must have an incredible pull because the weather in Eugene, Oregon is atrocious.
It's hardly ever. I guess there is a spot. Somebody told me, a friend of mine is a photographer, and I guess a lot of the photographers around the world go there in the summertime because it looks really nice. You get really nice, pictures there, but any other time, I don't get it. I do not understand it. I don't get it one bit as far as that goes. The combine took place this weekend. We know the search for a Raider quarterback is out in the forefront. I did want to go over some free agent options first before we did that. Thank you for everybody listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and to subscribe. Leave a comment, a like, all those things like that, and some questions as well that are in the bio. You can definitely check that out. First free agent quarterback, Russell Wilson. So would he be a guy for Raider fans? Be like, would you be okay with Russell Wilson for a short period of time to be the Raiders quarterback for next year? Even if they drafted a quarterback in a draft, just to maybe say you got McCarthy, and McCarthy's like one of the younger QBs. Would you be okay with Russell Wilson being the quarterback?
I'm going to say no. And I don't think Russell Wilson wants to go to a team that's going to draft a first-round quarterback anyways. He's not looking to be a one-year bridge guy. I don't want a quarterback in their mid-30s. This is a team that needs to build for the future and build around Max Crosby and develop the roster around them and not just go all in for 1 or 2 years. That's what the Raiders have done for 20 years, and that's why they're not any good right now. That's why they haven't been able to consistently win. It's because they always try to capitalize in the year they're in instead of build for the future.
Yep.
You're in a division with Patrick Mahomes. Even if you get lucky for 1 year, it's not going to consistently set you up to win over the next 8 to 10. So they need to do everything they can to go get that quarterback of the future and take the risk. And if it doesn't work and you drop the quarterback in the first round, you trade up and you miss, then you can pivot after 2 years. But you have to take the risk because that's the only way that you're gonna beat the Chiefs. And Justin Herbert is still in the division too, regardless of what Raider fans think about him. He is a good quarterback, and now they have Jim Harbaugh there to help balance that offense out.
Yeah. Fields, it seems like a lot of the stuff that comes out is agent driven, because if somebody really wanted him, they could just go ahead and give him the pick and it'd be done. What are your thoughts about Justin Fields to the Raiders? It seems like it's unlikely, especially with Luke Getsy being the offensive coordinator.
I don't know if it's agent driven. I think it's Bears driven because I don't think the Bears have gotten anything close to what they're looking for. I don't think there's a market for him right now. I think teams are trying to figure out what they're going to do in the draft. I think There are teams like the Falcons that are going to look to Kirk Cousins or looking to free agency. Until these free agent quarterbacks sign, I don't know if we're going to see Justin Fields move. And then if you're the Bears and Caleb Williams doesn't do medical at the combine and he wants to wait and do it when he visits these teams individually, are you willing to move Justin Fields before you know the medical information on a player that you're going to take number one overall? So I know the Bears said they want to do Justin Fields right and they want to move him before free agency starts. I actually don't know if that's going to be possible at this point because of the medical questions around Caleb Williams not doing it at the combine. That's going to delay the market for Fields. Spots are going to get taken up, whether that's the Steelers going after Russell Wilson, whether that's, Kirk Cousins going back to the Vikings. And when these guys land, or the Falcons, when these quarterbacks land, there might be 2 or 3 teams left. Now, if I'm the Raiders and the market drops to a 4th round pick, I might have more interest if it's a 4th round pick and I can keep my top 3 than a 2nd round pick or even a 3rd round pick. So the longer this goes on and the less market there is for Justin Fields and the price goes down, I could see the Raiders being in the market because they're in a spot right now where they're probably not going to get in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
JJ McCarthy, the way that, it sounds like he might go in the top 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're picking, and Bo Nix may not even get to 12. And then it's Micheal Penix or bust at that point. So maybe they do pivot and go Fields, but we'll see what happens. The Raiders are going to have to figure out what they want to do trade-wise. And if they were going to make a move, I would expect them to do it sooner rather than later and not wait until draft day.
Kirk Cousins sounds like if you got the bag, he could be your quarterback, but the Raiders don't look like they're going to be a team that's going to pay $100 million for Kirk Cousins. It looks like maybe the Falcons and Vikings are going to be going at it for that one.
Again, he's in his mid-30s coming off an Achilles injury, and he's had guaranteed contracts. I want to say at least 5 of the last 6, if not 6 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So the Raiders are going to have 40. They have around 42 million cap room. Once Garoppolo and if Hunter Renfrow gets released, you're up to 60. But are you willing to turn all of that into a guaranteed deal to Kirk Cousins for 2 or 3 years? Because Kirk Cousins isn't going to do a team-friendly deal. He's going to want guaranteed money. That's what he's been playing on. So I'm not tying up 2/3 of my salary cap on a 35-year quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, who still probably isn't good enough to make you better than the Chiefs or the Chargers at this point.
Yeah. So that's it right there as far as that goes. Some of the questions we had. First one was Penix at 13. Is that would you possibly do Penix at 13 if all the things you just talked about, McCarthy goes, and the top 3 guys go as advertised at the top?
Would I do Penix at 13? I would consider it if the medical people sign off on the medical information. If your medical team doesn't have any long-term concerns, then I think he does come into the conversation at 13. The problem is the Raiders are going to run a West Coast offense. Micheal Penix is probably not a West Coast type quarterback where it's about, 3 and 5 step drops and getting the ball out and reading defenses and having accuracy. He's more of a drop back, throw it down the field, launch it guy. That's not really what the West Coast offense is. And you want kind of a mobile guy in the West Coast offense so you can do the bootlegs and the play actions and roll the quarterback out, move the pocket. He's not that guy either. He's more of a stationary in the pocket, slide when he has to. He's not going to pick up a lot of yards with his feet. So it depends. If Antonio Pierce is adamant that we're going to run the football and do play action and throw it down the field, and Luke Getsy's going to have to completely adapt the offense around that, then it's a possibility at 13.
Yeah.
I don't think at this point, if all those other quarterbacks go in the top 4 or 5, if Bo Nix is the 5th guy and he goes in the top 15, I don't think Penix gets to the Raiders' 2nd pick in the mid 40s, wherever that pick is.
44, right? He won't get the 44. So yeah, because we had that discussion on Twitter the other night about like, do you do Penix at 13? Because if he's available at 13 and then the other guys go in front of him, it's like, damn, like, is he going to get the 44? He's probably not getting the 44. Like, he's not going to probably, you got Seattle, you got Pittsburgh, you got some spots there where he might end up going and you end up holding the bag. And maybe you get 2 nice players because this is a good draft, but you end up with Aiden O'Connell at the quarterback, and he's not a game changer.
And the quarterbacks next year aren't very good either. So the
No.
Raiders have to come out of this draft with a quarterback either via a trade or in the draft.
Yeah.
There won't be an option of free agency, and they can't walk away from this draft with. And I know people, I've been up and down X on my flights and my travel times, and it's like a lot of people like Joe Milton. Well, go through the draft history of guys taken after the first round. It's terrible. Yeah. It's not going to set you up for long-term success. The chance of hitting on one of those guys is so minimal that you're really not helping out your organization. And then you have to think about next year. Like, are the Raiders going to be in a position to hold a top 3 to 5 pick next year? You would assume the defense is still going to play well. If Jacobs comes back and you still have Adams, this team's still going to win 7 or 8 games next year, even with Aiden O'Connell. So you're not in a position. The quarterbacks aren't going to be as good. There's going to be less of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically in the same spot the Raiders have been in for the last 10 years. You're stuck with a middle of the first round pick and mediocrity at center, behind center. And they have to do everything they can this year to walk away with that difference maker. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. It happens. It's going to be a 50% hit and miss. You have to be willing to accept that risk.
My biggest thing is that if you draft a highly touted defensive tackle, you and I both love Micheal, right, from Toledo. If he turns out to be, Elvis Patterson, like, or just a really bad defensive back, right, you would have no problem pivoting from him. So if it's a quarterback, why is it so traumatic? If it's a quarterback, like you cannot. Like, I get the fact that cornerback and quarterback are two totally different positions, and quarterback is, really intricate to what you want to do, your success. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't try for a quarterback, if you don't try, I mean, and we have in our, what was it, 17 years between every time we pick a quarterback in the first round. Like, it seems like it's been like from all those guys. Like, it just seemed like if you don't do it, if you don't try, then you're always going to be in this situation where you're taking somebody else's trash at quarterback and trying to rekindle it. And those days are the Plunkett days, all stuff like that. That stuff is over.
The Raiders haven't tried in 42 years. They've taken 3 quarterbacks in the first round, and that's why they've been what they've been.
Yes.
Because they just haven't hit on that guy. Mark Wilson wasn't it. Jamarcus Russell wasn't it. Todd Marinovich wasn't it. And that was it. Those are the only guys they've taken in the first round. And I tweeted this 2 years ago that the AFC is an arms race. There's a ton of AFC teams with young, good quarterbacks that were on rookie deals, and you can go up and down the AFC. That's what you're competing with. The NFC doesn't have a lot, but the Raiders aren't in the NFC. They have to battle Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, like Josh Allen. Like, you have to beat all of those guys to get to where the Raiders want to get to, and you're not going to do it by taking a quarterback in the 4th round and crossing your fingers.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, the combine, the quarterback version of it. People ask me why, and it's a question to the show, like, why is the combine important? I think it's, and I'll just say a couple of things, and I'll have you jump in, my Ryan, real quick. Is that, like, I think it's just more of it's verification. It's, they want to know how tall you really are, how much you really weigh, like, and then get a chance to kind of meet you face to face. And have those conversations. And then, as far as the drills go, the drills are there, but, like, for the most part, I think, they look at the drills, but they also look at the tape as well for the most part. Because, like, what you did under duress in these ball games is probably seemed like to me would be one of the most important things.
Yeah, it's basically to verify what your scouts have seen on tape and in live looks in person. Get all these guys together, let them run together, let them lift together, check some boxes on scouting reports. But the teams probably care more about the meetings with these players individually than they care about what happens in the underwear Olympics. The fans, we want to see these guys run around and jump and do all that and catch balls and throw balls. The quarterback's throwing the ball. They did about what everyone would expect. Like, if you watch these guys throw, who has arm strength, who can drive the ball down the field. And I just thought it was interesting going through all the comments online that, like, clearly people don't like certain quarterbacks, and they would point about how they didn't have deep ball accuracy in the deep ball. I went back and watched it yesterday because I didn't see it live, but I watched all the quarterbacks throw yesterday. And then the quarterbacks those same people had the same issues. No one really threw the deep ball well during that, but you're throwing to receivers that you don't have any familiarity with how they run their routes, the pace in and out of their breaks. You're basically throwing to a spot and hoping that the guy gets there. A lot of the times guys will put air under it. The receiver will have to slow down and make a catch, and everyone thinks, oh, he hit that deep ball, but he didn't hit him in stride. It's basically just to show off your arm in those events. So I saw a lot of comments about how Bo Nix was really bad in that, and I watched it and he was okay. And JJ McCarthy was terrible. And I watched it, and you saw the ball jump off his hand, and he made some accurate throws. And Joe Milton threw the ball 70+ yards down the field. We all expected that. Michael Penix did the same thing. Michael Penix has a good arm. Shocker. Everybody knew that watching him play quarterback at Washington. Spencer Rattler was kind of inconsistent, but everyone that liked Spencer Rattler in the second, third round all said he was great because they want to feel good about Spencer Rattler. So at the end of the day, it's what happens behind closed doors with the team personnel meeting those players. How do they retain information? How do they go through reads? Because at the end of the day, the quarterbacks that are going to succeed in the NFL are the guys that can make quick decisions, that can get out of pressure, that can understand the coverages, pre-snap, post-snap, make good decisions, be accurate. You don't see any of that in the combine because they're not under any pressure. They're throwing it against air with no pass rushers. So you got to go back to the tape. But I think it's more confirming too with the skill position players, like what you see on tape. Like we all knew that Xavier Worthy was really fast. We didn't know he was 4.21 fast.
Yeah.
We all, we knew that Micheal, the cornerback from Toledo, could run. I didn't know that he would run in the 4.33. So he has deep speed. He's physical. He bench pressed the most in the cornerback room, I believe. Nate Wiggins, it's 6'2", running a 4.28. So you want to go, and sometimes these guys will change your perceptions. Guys you didn't think could run on tape run well here. Why is that? Why does that not translate on game day with the pads on?
Exactly.
And vice versa. So it opens up a lot of questions. Brian Thomas running a 4.33. I didn't know that he could run like that. I didn't watch a ton of LSU, but I didn't have Brian Thomas as a 4.33 guy on my bingo card. Now I do. I think these receivers are all going to fly off the board now. These guys that can really run their game changers, because every team needs speed on offense to stretch the field. And there was a number of guys that put up really good times.
Yeah, interesting to see. Do you think the combine is going to, I'm not saying lose some of its luster, but I did see that. Well, I thought it was interesting that the Big 12 has its own combine and about 40 players. I mean, will conferences start to do that now? And maybe maybe you get more participation from, and the NFL Network's going to cover it as well too. But maybe you get more people involved in it because they're throwing to receivers who they're more familiar with because they can be throwing to teammates. I think they pretty much, when Micheal Penix was throwing, they kind of made sure that he was never throwing to his receivers from Washington too. I guess that was part of the national and then the NFL combine.
I think as we go to these super conferences where you're going to have 16, 18, 20 teams, and we're not going to have a ton of variety around the country because now that we have USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, and the Big 12, and we have the Big 10, and then we have Arizona and these teams moving to the Big 12. You're going to have you can probably do some glorified pro days with multiple players. You used to have it with 2 or 3 schools. You'd have the big school and a couple local schools in the area work out together. Now, if you do it by conferences, I still don't think you're going to get the top players. The agents aren't going to put these guys out there
exactly
if there's no need to. This is more for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, 7th round priority free agents that they get an opportunity to work out and show scouts, area scouts, cross checkers in that area what they can do. I don't think it changes the top of the draft, the first round, having these guys work out more because the agents just aren't going to allow them to do that. And you saw that. I think I read a number today that over 200 guys didn't do certain individual drills. 100 guys didn't run the 40. And everyone's just going to wait to their pro days now to do a lot of that stuff where they're in a better environment. Maybe it's a faster track. They get to sleep in their own bed. It's a more comfortable setting for these guys to work out in than have all the nerves of doing it on national TV indoors with everyone watching them.
And is it even healthy for these guys to be doing some of all these all out 100% drills like that? I mean, could they end up not? You don't want to end up tearing something and hurting the ankle or something like that as well too. Like you can't. I mean, there's not. Is it? You're not. It's not a game. It's not a game situation, but you know, it's a like a doing the 40, then doing running a bunch of routes, running a bunch of 9 routes, stuff like that. Like is that like that's like the top guys are just not gonna expose themselves to that, right?
Yeah, I think a lot more of it has to do with these guys traveling in, hydration levels, like where they're at, how much sleep did they
Yeah,
get the night
that's
before? They're
true.
meeting
That's
all
true.
these teams. What
Yeah.
time of day are they running? And
Mm-hmm.
as the agents get involved and you start talking about stuff like that people don't think about, like these guys could injure themselves. Maybe they're
Yeah.
not fully hydrated. Maybe they didn't get a lot of sleep because they met with 15 teams the night before. Their
Yeah.
sleep pattern may off because they traveled in from across the country and maybe they're dehydrated. So,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you like guys to get out there, you want to see them compete, you want to see them to get out there and not be afraid to do some of these events. But at the end of the day, like a lot of people were giving flack to Caleb Williams because he didn't work out, but no one said anything about Jaden Daniels or Drake May not working out or Marvin Harrison Jr. not working out. It's funny how the media picks and chooses which guys
Yeah.
they want to
100%.
complain about.
100%.
But at the end of the day, the top guys don't need to work out. There's nothing to gain. There was
Yeah.
nothing for Marvin Harrison to gain. He's going in the top 5, so there was
Yeah.
really no reason for him to go out there. And he's right. Like, turn on the film if you want to watch him play. You can watch him dominate for 2 years at Ohio State.
Yeah, no question about it. The court. So nothing for the quarterbacks who were there, who did participate, and I think people got a chance to kind of maybe. That was a friend of mine joked with me like, "Hey, McCarthy probably threw more in the combine than he did all season," just joking around. But for the most part, I mean, I think people we got to see what we needed to see. Did McCarthy really help himself to the point where he is clearly the number 4 quarterback? Because it seems like I'm looking at all over the NFL landscape here, and everybody has him as a number 4 quarterback now.
I'm going to hold off answering that until he runs at his pro day, because if he runs in the 4.4s, then yes, like
Oh
he
yeah,
is. It's
yeah, 100%.
6'3". I didn't think he was going to measure 6'3", 220.
Yeah, me either.
Albert Breer had been reporting that scouts are saying he's a stretched out Bryce Young. He's too narrow. He's really thin. He's going to measure 6'1", 6'1 and a half, 200. Clearly, that was wrong information. He measured 6'3", 219. So he's a bigger quarterback, and if he can run and he gives you the arm strength, he has all the traits you're looking for. Is he a finished product? No. He doesn't have to be a finished product. A lot of these guys aren't finished products. The job of every scouting department. No, the job of the scouting department is to find out why he was used the way he was in Michigan. Go on campus, talk to the coaches, talk to the teammates, find out about his makeup. Is it clearly everyone has a lot of great things to say about JJ, but the build of that team was run the ball and play defense. You can't penalize JJ McCarthy because he didn't play in an air raid system and throw the ball over the field, but you have to grade him on the throws he had. And maybe it takes longer because he hasn't had to read defenses. He hasn't had to push the ball down the field on 3rd and longs. He's been playing in a lot of 3rd and shorts. Like, he hasn't had to come back. But the scouting department needs to answer those questions. They need to find answers to why that is. And the teams that are comfortable with the answers they get will have them higher. The teams that aren't won't. And you also have to do it the other way too. Like, he's just turned 21 years old. Like, it's easy to sit here and just say these guys are all equal, but some of these guys are 23, 24 years old and have played 5 or 6 years of college football. Where is the ceiling for those players? They may be lower floor guys, but there's really no ceiling. Like, they're not physically going to get a lot better in the next 3 years when they're 27, 28, 29, or 26, 27, 28, whatever it is. JJ McCarthy, 3 years from now, is going to be the same age these guys, and he'll be 3 years in the NFL. So where does an organization does age and development come into it? And how do you feel about what you can get out of this guy over the next 3 years? Where will he be when he's 24?
Yeah, interesting. That's the biggest point we're trying to figure out here too. Does Jaden Daniels are we worried about his weight? Like, I mean, I think it's pretty him not weighing, I think he's going to be out there in Louisiana eating some jambalaya, trying to put some pounds on or something. But it seems like he would be a guy who we would have to have some pause with, as far as just seeing how seeing where he weighs in at. We know he's around 6'3", 6'4", but we got to find out how much that guy weighs, right?
Yeah, all accounts are it's going to be about 205 to 210. Again, the same people said that JJ McCarthy would be 200. He turned 219, but on that frame, I don't see Jaden Daniels pushing 220, 225 on that frame. He's just not built that way.
Yeah.
But I do think the days of the prototypical 6'4", 230 quarterback, there's a lesser need for that because they protect the quarterback so much that you can't hit them. Guys aren't driving them to the ground. He can escape and get away from some of that. It's going to be up to him to get out of bounds, to know when to slide, to avoid getting hit down the field. But again, they protect the quarterback so much that I think the days of needing that guy to stand there and just take a pounding and get up and make the next pass, you don't really have to do that anymore. But yeah, there is a durability question because he's so thin that if he does get hit and he's on a team with a bad offensive line and he can't get away from these guys all the time, can he hold up for 17 games plus the playoffs if his team gets there? That's definitely a concern.
Yeah, no question about it as far as that goes. But no, so you watch all of them throw. I was in a room. Everybody was talking about every throw Nick's threw. It was like, oh my god, it was the worst passing ever, and I just didn't see it that way. Just going by CBS Sports and their ranking of the quarterbacks, they have Williams, Daniels, May, McCarthy, Penix, Bo, and then there's a big drop off as far as between Bo and Spencer Rattler. Yeah, for the Raiders, I mean, this they I thought I didn't buy the Patriot stuff before. Now it seems like it's going to be the Pats are not going to. The Cats are probably going to take a quarterback. It's going to be 3 straight quarterbacks with Marvin Harrison, and then do the Chargers stay at 5, or do they move to get more picks, or do they just take the offensive lineman or whoever they want, and then 6 do the Giants? If they want McCarthy, do they go out and get McCarthy, or do they just go out there and try to improve the team that they have now to kind of save their jobs with Daniel Jones?
Well, all of these teams this time of year are going to all tell you they want the quarterback because that's where the trade offers are going to come from. Mm-hmm. I still don't know if the Patriots are going to take a quarterback, but it would be stupid for them to say they weren't. The best thing they can do is say we are. So bring us a better offer. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins ended up in New England. Like, Robert Kraft is used to winning. Like, he has money, or cap space now. Why would he not go out and try to get Kirk Cousins or get a veteran quarterback in there and try to run it back? Clearly, they don't have the skill position players around them, but I could definitely see Kirk Cousins being a fit there.
They could add it. They got $100 million worth of they got money and they got a lot of draft picks, so they could. If they got Kirk Cousins, then they can just take Marvin Harrison Jr. Or
they could trade down and really rebuild their roster.
Yeah, they could do that too.
So a lot of these teams are just going to say, at this point, we're going to take the quarterback just to get teams to bring the offers to them, and we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, we're still 2 months away from the draft, 6 or 7 weeks. So you're going to hear everything. I still think it's very reasonable that the quarterbacks won't go 1, 2, 3. I still think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to find a way to be in those top 3 picks. I don't know if it's going to be 1, 2, or 3, but we'll see.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens there. Defensive line, that's another spot where the Raiders definitely could use some help. As far as defensive tackle goes, did we see anything from a defensive tackle room that obviously? I can get a couple of that. As far as defensive tackle goes, where do you which one of these guys do you think you would like to see the Raider? I mean, because I think Raider fans just throw names out, but there's a specific type, right? Because you can't just go out there and get a guy who can who's slim, who's a pass rusher when because you need somebody on rundowns to handle that part of it too, right?
If they're going to take a defensive tackle in the first or second round, he better be a 3-down guy. So he's going to be probably a 3 technique that can hold up against the run and then offer plenty of pass rush value. The days of drafting the 0 technique, nose tackle, 1 technique in the top 2 rounds, probably not going to happen because he won't be on the field for. You're going to be a nickel so much that he won't be on the field unless it's first down or 3rd and short. So you want athletic guys, and watching the defensive tackles run around. What are their movements like in space? How do they run the hoop? How do they run some of these drills? Getting seeing them work laterally. The Florida State guy just blew it away. Braden Fisk.
Yeah, that was crazy. That's crazy. He's moving.
Watching that guy moving around, he's an animal. Like, it wouldn't shock me if that guy ends up in the back half of the first round. Physically what he was able to do, and his tape has matched it up. You thought of him more as like an overachiever, a guy who just plays hard and made plays in the backfield, but like he had the athletic traits to back that up. Byron Murphy Jr. or the second is another guy that he's big, he can take on double teams, but you saw the athlete and the movement skills that he had inside. Aurora from Clemson, I believe that's how you say it. It's not, if I got it wrong, I got it wrong, but you see a young guy that can run, he can move, he's big. I like the guy from LSU, Smith, I think his name was. Yeah, Mason Smith, 6'5", long arms, pretty good movement skills. Why did he not have as much production on the field? That's something the scouting department's going to need to figure out. Can you develop that guy? But he's 6'5", with long arms, and he can move. And then you saw Wingo. Wingo's was small. I was shocked at how small he was when he was running around in shorts compared to everyone else. So do you want that guy on the field for 3 downs? Or is he just a designated 3rd round pass rush specialist? And where do you value that? So Chris Jenkins came in, I think, at close to 290 to 300 pounds, which is a lot heavier than he played in at Michigan. So is that something he can keep on his frame and play at? Or is he going to drop down more to what his playing weight was at Michigan? But, he impressed. So I thought the defensive tackle group was pretty solid. There was 5, 6, 7 guys in there. And then you could clearly tell who kind of the stiffer, slower movement, lack of twitch guys were, because after that first set of guys, that you could really tell, like athlete wise, movement wise, there's a big drop off when you get into that 3rd bucket of defensive tackles.
With so just going back to the let's stay with this part. Any more standouts in the draft for what the Raiders need? Any more guys that you think that because we're looking at we're just gonna say 1st round quarterback, guys who might be around in the 2nd round, but who kind of meet the needs of the Raiders, who had good combines.
Yeah, I like some of the cornerbacks. Obviously Micheal. If the Raiders could figure out how to get him, Nate Wiggins running a 4.28 with that size, with that length, is a guy that they could bring in. Max Melton, I thought the corner from Rutgers had really good athletic testing. DJ James at Auburn. So there were cornerbacks, I think, that can help the Raiders in the 1st or 2nd round. Defensive tackles 1st, 2nd round.
Do you think this guy that everybody's going crazy for, Cooper DeJean, do you think he's more of a safety or more of a corner? Like, people are just kind of trying. It seems like he's a safety, and people are trying to make him into a corner. Like, what do you feel about? I know you haven't deep dived yet, but what are your initial thoughts of Cooper DeJean?
My initial thoughts on him, he's probably more. He can play on the outside, but he might be more of a slot guy. Just because of the toughness and the ability to get in there and make run stops. He could probably be a really good safety. Whoever drafts him is probably going to start him on the outside, but the history of outside cornerbacks that are white, let's be honest, like outside of Jason Sehorn, there's not a lot of guys that have been able to do it. He might be the one that can do it. He gives you punt return skills, but I would probably prefer one of these other guys on the outside. We don't know what his testing is going to be if he gets to his pro day because of his injury and he tests off the charts and he runs a 4.3. Then maybe he is an outside corner. But right now, I'd probably lean more. He's probably a guy you can move around in the slot, play some safety. It would be a really nice chess piece for a defensive coordinator to move around. But I don't think he's the line him up across from the number 1 and just put him on an island for the whole game.
Yeah, interesting talk, interesting there. How difficult is it? Because people covet first round picks. So how difficult is it for if the Raiders took, let's say a Mitchell was available at 13, they took for 13, and then it's the race for Penix, right? How difficult is it to just get back into that first round from 44? I mean, that's
Not if
gonna.
you give them a pick. If you give up your first round pick next year, it won't be that
Oh
hard.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. So if you're willing to give that, if you're willing to give that one for next year, yeah, that could be another thing possibility. I'm going through the list of teams. I'm gonna just play a little game with you real quick. Raiders take Latu at 13, for instance. The Saints would the Saints take Penix?
They could.
They could, right? Indianapolis, no. Seattle could.
They could.
They could. Jacksonville,
No.
no. Bengals, no. Rams,
They could.
they
Matt
could.
Stafford's getting up there.
Pittsburgh.
Absolutely.
You got Miami.
Probably not.
All right, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Dallas, Green
What if
Bay.
Miami's not sold on
That's
Tua
what
and you could
Miami.
get Penix to throw the ball to Waddle and Hill?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, and then you got Green Bay. No, got Love. Tampa Bay might settle on. Tampa Bay could.
I would push back though, because would he be able to run the Mike McDaniel offense the way Mike McDaniel wants it run?
Yes, that would be that.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a fit.
Yes, I don't think, but he does have the arm strength, but then does he have the anticipation too as well? Because Tua does have that anticipatory. He's a good anticipatory thrower of the football as well. So Tampa, they probably will have Baker Mayfield. Houston, no. Let's see, Buffalo, no. Detroit, no. Baltimore, San Francisco, Kansas City. So I mean, but there are some teams that like it may not be a need. I mean, but like a Rams, like somebody like the Rams, but Pittsburgh might just say, hey, let's just do it. Like, what I mean? Like, let's bring them in. Seattle, new regime, all those things like that. They have 3 really good receivers. They might be able to do it. Like, I mean, that's why I'm thinking like they cannot, the whole, draft Mac then draft Carr. I don't, they're not going to be able to get Penix if they don't, or Penix or Nix or any of these other quarterbacks if they don't take him at 13.
Well, you mentioned Tampa. They took Kyle Trask in the second round. How'd that work out for him?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's probably on that list that you put out on Twitter of all the second round picks who don't do shit.
He is on that list.
He's on that list, right? So yeah, exactly.
He's on the list.
He's on the list. So yeah, I mean, it's just something to think about, Rare Nation. And I know some people are like worried about like whatever, but like I mean, they kind of this is the bet. If they had taken like this was the draft. I talked about it for 2 years. Like this is the draft that you really want to have picks in, or even have a quarterback in, because if you had a quarterback, you could really get a really good player. But now those winning those games at the end of the season, I'm not going to fault Antonio Pierce for trying to win. He's trying to keep his job, but those. I mean, they really need. I mean, this team needs a quarterback, and they got 2 teams in front of them who need a quarterback. What if the Jets want to take a quarterback because this is the last year of Aaron Rodgers? Like there's some really this intrigue for quarterbacks, and like we talked about too, like the NFC is coming for quarterbacks because there's a void of quarterbacks in the National Football Conference. So you look at all the top of the draft, 2 NFC teams. You got Atlanta. You got the Giants could do take a quarterback. So it's going to be 4 in the top 10, I think, and so it does push down some big time talent on the position players, but the Raiders are in that spot where they need a QB, and it's going to be a tough spot for them at 13. But they might have to trade up. Where we talked about the Tashawn Reed article, talked about the Raiders are exploring, which is like I love that word, exploring, trying to get to 5, 6, or 7. Do you think the Chargers, like this? Let's just say some Robert Harrison Jr. or something happened here, whatever, where Jaden or May was available at 5. Would they really? Would the Chargers ever trade with the Raiders?
They would for the right package. If you gave them the right draft picks, they would do it.
Interesting.
I'm exploring buying a Chevy Silverado. I'll let you know that.
I'm also exploring. Yeah, I know. The exploring part of it is just like hilarious to me. Just like McDaniels and Ziegler explored going up to one to get Bryce Young. Yeah, okay. As far as that goes, yeah, I just don't. Like I said, it's 13 is not a great spot. But but they can like it's not impossible. It seems like the guy who would be Penix and Knicks would be available. It seems like if the draft board goes through like what we think it's going to go through, I think they'll be available, but all depends on whether or not they pull the trigger on that or not. And I think if you're AP, like we talked about it before, like I'll probably give him 22 games if AOC starts this whole year for him. I mean, they're not gonna. The AOC is if the AOC is a quarterback, as much as Patrick Graham does on defense, as much as whatever, they're just not going to be able to be a really good team with AOC at the quarterback position.
No, and I would argue that Knicks or Penix, if it goes the way it's sounding, if McCarthy finds his way in the top 6 or 7, someone's going to trade up at 8, 9, or 10 to get Penix or Knicks. Yeah. I think only one of them will be there at 13. I don't think they'll both be there. They still have to get by the Broncos have no quarterback.
They have none.
What is Sean Payton going to do? He's in year 2. He just jettisoned Russell Wilson out of there. He's not going to play next year with Jarrett Stidham. So they're going to need a quarterback too. It is what it is. I'm not going to fault Antonio Pierce for winning games. His job is to win games. Tom Telesco's job is to give him a quarterback.
Exactly.
So we'll see how it goes. We don't give back wins in the National Football League. The Raiders don't have enough of them over the last 20 years to do that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, once you made the choice to get Antonio Pierce, like he went all in, and they had some bad quarterbacks they beat, but they also beat the world champions as well too. So it all balances out. Anything on anything else on the combine or the draft stuff or anything like that, or?
No, I do want to bring up Christian Wilkins because if Miami lets him hit free agency, he should be the number 1 target for the Raiders. I would target him over Leonard Williams. I know Raider fans love Leonard Williams, but he's much younger. He's a better player. He's a more productive player. Mm-hmm. He's a better run stopper. He's a better pass rusher. He's the ideal interior guy to put next to Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz, and then potentially Tyree Wilson on rush downs. Like if you had those 4 getting after the quarterback, and then you just find a big nose tackle put next to Wilkins on short yardage or first down, that's a really good defensive line. I do find it interesting that Hondo Carpenter keeps pushing this Danielle Hunter to the Raiders in free agency. I don't see that as a fit. Like, unless the Raiders are completely not sold on what Malcolm Kuntz did at the second half of last year, why would you want to go spend $20 million plus on Danielle Hunter? I love Danielle Hunter as a player. I would love for him to be on the Raiders, but it seems redundant to add another outside guy. That basically stunts the development of Tyree Wilson. It basically says to Malcolm Kuntz, you're out of here after next year. I would much rather give that money to Christian Wilkins. And the way the salary cap's going, I don't care what it costs, to be honest with you. Like the cap just went up $30-something million from last year. Like people are going to lose their minds when these free agents are getting $25-30 million a year, but you got to understand where the cap's at $255 million now. 10 years ago it was like 135 or 155. Like it's gone up $100 million in 10 years. So there are ways to maneuver the cap. If it costs $30 million a year to go get Christian Wilkins, and you can get out of the contract in the year fourth or 5th year, you give him a 5-year deal where you can get out of it after 3, you do it. That's the only way you're going to acquire that kind of talent. Chris Jones isn't going to hit free agency. He's going to go back to the Chiefs, but it sounds like. So I know that Raider fans want him, but like if Christian Wilkins hits the market, he is a franchise defensive tackle. The Raiders need to do everything they can to add him to this defense, because then all you need is a corner, and then throw all your other resources on offense and go get him next year.
Yeah, and I mean, it will be something where the Raiders got somebody who is, how can I put it, in their prime. Like he's not over 30. He's not over 32 years old. He's in his prime.
He's 26, something like
20s,
that.
I think they think it's 27. I'm not sure how he is, but he's in his 20s, which is already a plus for me as far as that goes. So like to me, like grab him. That really gets you. I mean, the best way to get
He's
to
28.
28.
28.
The best way to get to Mahomes is by hitting Mahomes and sacking Mahomes and putting him on the ground and or making him feel pressure.
You can't say that because then all the quarterback police will come after you and say that you have a bounty
Oh, I
against
think
him, and then we'll call even more penalties.
yeah. YouTube's gonna block that part out. Don't worry about it. NFL will block that part out.
Can't say that.
Hondo
You're not allowed to say you need to hit Patrick Mahomes.
exactly. It's still football, right? I thought it was football. Okay, that's football. Spencer Rattler is also a name that Hondo's been kind of pushing out a lot too as well. And like, dude, like, I'm gonna tell you, like, I watched.
I don't see it.
I don't see it either. And I watched a couple of games, and his best game, he plays in the big bad SEC. His best game was against Furman. So that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. I mean, he's not the guy. I mean, he's not the guy you want. He's just not the guy. So like, I would not look forward to that pairing the Raiders and Rattler the Raider. We don't want that as well at all anyway. Anything on Michael Lombardi's like this whole thing with AP? Like I don't get it. I don't even want to get it or understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand
Sour
it.
grapes of some sort. I would say on Spencer Rattler, like this is what happens around draft time, and it happens in all segments of the draft, whether it's professional sports, fantasy drafts, or whatever. When you realize you can't get Williams and May or your top targets, then you fall in love with like the second or two guys you can get, and talk yourselves into those players. There's a reason Spencer Rattler's not talked about with those other six guys. And then you mix in the athletic testing he had at the combine. He ran, what, a 4.96?
That was surprising.
And then you look at his size. He's barely 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
He threw 20 interceptions the last 2 years at South Carolina. People don't talk about that. They don't talk about how much he turns the ball over.
Yeah.
So as much as they hate J.J. McCarthy, you know what J.J. McCarthy doesn't do? He doesn't turn the ball
over. Yeah.
Spencer Rattler turns it over at a high rate, and people don't talk about that.
Yeah,
He's probably a backup in the NFL when all said and done.
Yes, and I mean, like, listen, like, I'm not. I mean, Keelan Slovis smoked him in the 40. Like, he was moving down the line. Keelan Slovis, BYU. But yeah, I would not. He is not a guy. I think you're in. There are a bunch of guys there. I think the Raiders are the way that the offense is built. If they can do what they got to do in the offensive line. I think maybe he'll come back at quarterback. I'm sorry, a running back. Jacobs will come back at running back, and then you have the young tight end. You have, all these different things. So I believe that they are in a situation where a quarterback could come in and not have to kind of progress throughout the season. You never know how rookie quarterbacks are going to react to the National Football League, but it just we can go back and forth, but it got to be a quarterback. Whether it's 13, whether they move back or whatever, move up or whatever, but it got to be one of those guys. I think you're looking at either McCarthy, Penix, or Nix. I mean, one of those three guys. I mean, that's pretty much that's it. That's it. But I do kind of think along your lines is that like, damn, like think about it for a second. Like three teams are gonna pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. They're not
gonna do it.
A guy who grades he's grading. I'm not saying he's Megatron, but like he's grading so high. It just seems like you kind of think that one of those guys or one of those teams are going to do it.
Or Arizona may panic and try to get to 3 just to get him, because they need to pair him with Kyler Murray. I do think the Raiders could go offensive line as well, but at the end of the day, trying to find this needle in a haystack with the 3rd round quarterback, the 4th round quarterback, you have to sell this to Devontae Adams, who's coming back to the Raiders. How can you look Devontae Adams in the face and say, we're giving you Aiden O'Connell and Joe Milton? or Aiden O'Connell and Michael Pratt, or Aiden O'Connell and Spencer Rattler. Devontae
Yeah.
would be like, cool, where's my check? Next year, can you trade me to XYZ? Like,
Yeah.
Devontae needs a quarterback now that he can build with and try to get in the next 2, 3, 4 years, like really win something, because that's his window. His
Yeah.
window is not to cross his fingers and pray that Spencer Rattler can win him a deep playoff run 2 years from now, because I know what's going to happen. Spencer Rattler can't do that. So if you come to me and I'm Devontae Adams and you tell me that's your plan, we're going to get an offensive lineman or a corner and we'll find that third round quarterback for you, I'll say you better get one in free agency. You better bring in a veteran that can help us try to win now.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, because Devontae Adams will not be on board if they plan to get a quarterback in the third or fourth round.
No, he won't be. Especially when like he said, he walked into the office and said, "Hey, you know what? That CJ Stroud, man, maybe I should try to look at that dude." And they were like, "Oh, we got it. Don't worry about it. We got it." And then he ends up being CJ Stroud now. So
the Raiders have to make a decision on Devontae Adams next year, because this contract balloons
dramatically. Yes.
He has all the leverage after this season. So you better make him happy this year and get him a quarterback that you can build this team around.
Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting. It's gonna get crazy. Now, this whole, like I said, this whole week is gonna be nuts. Do you have an issue with anything Caleb Williams has done this combine, right? I mean, like,
no,
me either.
I do understand. The whole medical thing is kind of, I don't hold it against him, but like, I get it. He doesn't want to go in there and get poked and prodded by 30 teams when he knows that 25 of them will never have a chance to draft him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only going to do it to the teams that I want to go to, or that I'm interested in playing for, or have a high enough pick to get me.
Yeah.
It does delay the plans for those teams, though. Like I said, like, they're going to have to get him into their facility soon. They're going to have to do the testing with him soon.
Yeah.
Before free agency starts, I would think, so they can formulate their plans. Or he knows, like, at this point, the Bears are taking me, so there's no reason for me to do all of this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of it is like the Bears are taking him. They're going to take him, and they're going to have an opportunity to do what I would dream about for a Raider fan, or as a Raider fan, to have. Well, actually, we did have 3 first-round picks, so I can't say that.
I will add this. This is not an NFL Caleb Williams problem. There are athletes in other sports and other drafts that only do certain things for certain teams.
Interesting. So yeah, that's interesting. That's true.
So this is not a Caleb Williams.
This is not. So this is not just a Caleb Williams thing. Like this happens in other sports. But NFL is king, so we're making a big deal about it. So I understand. All right, Raider Nation. There's a lot to digest here. Go and do the combine stuff, the draft, free agency is around the corner. I just got a thing, I guess, from Rap Sheet, said that what's his name, that Christian Wilkins will not be tagged. So that's something.
Go get him, AP.
So go ahead and go do that. And then I want to just, like, rest in peace to Chris Mortensen, man. Like, damn, dude, that was really cool, man. Like, he was really great. I think if you saw I didn't realize he had such a tight relationship with Daniel Jeremiah. That kind of almost, like, that kind of touched my heart, seeing how much. I mean, he's breaking down on TV, crying about what a good person Chris Mortensen was. So I thought growing up, I mean, him, the guy out of Seattle, John Clayton, and baseball side, I used to love Peter Gammons. I love Diamond Notes. All those guys end up going away, man. Like, it just ended up going away, man. So, like, I just shout out to his family and Chris Mortensen.
Yeah, I think for the younger generation that has had the internet and Twitter and all these social media resources for info, like, when we were growing up, at least for me, you would wait for the sporting news like once a week or once every 2 weeks, and there'd be 100%. A column. That's where you'd get your info. Or you'd watch SportsCenter for Inside the Huddle with John Clayton. Like, that's where you get your info once a week for 5 minutes on SportsCenter. Like, you didn't have access to people tweeting out info randomly. So, like, I grew up listening to those guys. The Mel Kiper for the draft, like that's where you would go buy draft guides, and that would be it. There was no Twitter, there was no websites, there was no everyone's rankings that you could go see. There was no mock drafts. Like that was it. That's where you got your info. So those guys laid the groundwork for everything that you see today.
Yeah, and they fought to be accurate, not first. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I used to work at ESPN. So those guys fought to be accurate, not first. So just something to think about. When you're looking at Twitter, when random accounts put out random foolishness all the time. It's kind of crazy. So all right. Anything else?
Nope, back to work.
he's at the airport right now. Okay, folks. Yeah, he's at the airport right now. About to leave again.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. Thanks for joining us here, man. Take care, brother.
All right. Take care. Bye.